Welcome to the Octopod. I'm Kyle Davis, Head of the Office of the CTO. Join us as we dive into the latest technologies and trends shaping business. Whether you're a tech enthusiast, a business leader, or just looking to stay ahead in the digital age, this podcast is for you. Let's unlock opportunities with technology together. Let's jump in.
Hi everyone, so this time we're going to delve into the world of cloud optimization and the power of partnership within that ecosystem. And I'm excited to be joined by Dean from Dell. Dean, do you want to introduce yourself to everyone?
Yeah, absolutely. Rob, thank you for having me, first of all. My name's Dean Martin. I'm responsible for the relationship with our cloud providers across EMEA.
Excellent, thanks for that. So in this three-part series, we're going to really look at three core things. What is the state of the nation within the cloud estate at the moment? Or why are the partnerships between what people might think as traditional providers like Dell and the cloud providers, why are they so important and why are they really revolutionizing that optimization journey? In part two, we're going to look into the solutions that are able to unlock these challenges. And in part three, we're going to focus in on storage specifically as one of the big challenges we're seeing within this space. So hopefully you'll join us for all three and we'll get into it. So Dean, here we are, part one, talking about the state of the nation, cloud adoption, market trends, hybrid, etc. But you talked about alliances manager between Dell and the public cloud providers.
Yeah.
What is that about then? Because it doesn't feel like a natural conversation from the way we've come from in the industry. So let everyone know, why does your role exist? What do you do?
Very good question. and I'm trying to figure that out on a daily basis. You're absolutely right. If you look at the inherent relationship as an alliance lead, typically, you're building solutions collectively that you take to market as part of an engagement to help with our customers and the customers' needs. It's slightly different in the dynamic when operating with the cloud providers. Obviously, we have our software. Our software operates inside of the public cloud itself, and naturally, it's not a traditional alliances role because you're dealing with an entity that is of equal size, if not larger, than yourselves in terms of the go-to-market that you're building out. So it's a really interesting dynamic. But more importantly, it's about two things for me. It's about how do we best enable our people? How do we best enable our customers? And more importantly, how do we help the cloud providers themselves recognize that by working in partnership, we could help drive more value collectively together?
No, it makes sense. And I guess that's part of this conversation is, what do we think has driven that cloud adoption over the years? And actually, why do we need this alliance piece now? Because there must be some inherent challenges that the native providers aren't solving to want to have a relationship with the likes of Dell in this space. So I guess for me, if we go back 5-10 years ago, that sort of traditional IT infrastructure was not capable of delivering the scalable consumption models. There's a lot of complexity in management. We didn't have modern services like containers, etc., available in there. But if we look at a modern data center today, lots of automation in them platforms with things like Azure Arc and VxRail and all that sort of stuff. Lots of container capabilities on-prem now. So what are you seeing, I guess, as like the current drivers towards the public cloud providers from customers and that are driving some of the challenges that you're looking to address as well?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting dynamic that we find ourselves in. Our customers have found themselves in this environment where they are committing themselves in terms of high volumes to the cloud providers because they naturally see some kind of value that's associated with operating in an agile, flexible way, and absolutely the cloud providers do provide that. But we need to remember and take a step back that the historics of cloud in its nature wasn't really geared up in terms of for enterprise consumption. It was predominantly for kind of small interactions and small business requirements rather than the beasts that they've become today. So what we're seeing is that some customers have been successful in driving cloud adoption and moving towards a cloud environment, whereas some haven't been as successful because of application modernization or rationalization of the applications they have in their estate. Security and compliance plays a part in that in terms of the way how they operate. And because of that, it really creates strain on organizations to try and execute in a direction and a strategy that's been set to either the board members or in terms of what they're doing. So for us, we're really trying to help our customers on that journey. And And I think this is an exciting situation whereby hybrid is very much here to stay because of those challenges that I've just talked about. We're seeing that through external regulators that are kind of saying, well, actually, if you look at the market in general, there is clearly a demand for both areas, for both places.
And I think we're seeing that change in mindset. Early cloud adoption was, well, we want to ditch all of them traditional technologies because cloud's going to offer us this promise of something better, something more shiny, something cheaper, something easier to operate, something less complex potentially. And I think early days, if you said to a customer, bring some of that traditional tech with you into cloud, the answer was, no, I want the cloud native tools because that's the reason I'm going to cloud.
Yeah.
But I think we're seeing with the trend towards hybrid, the trend towards edge as well, and the need to run workloads in different places, that actually we don't want different management domains and different levels of complexity across that diverse estate anymore. So we want to have something a bit more unified. And I think we're starting to see that relaxation of, I don't have to use every piece of Kool-Aid that comes from the cloud provider, because maybe it doesn't have the same features. No. You know, especially when we're looking at things like storage, etc. There's a lot of features there that aren't necessarily in the public cloud providers because of the way they architect, manage disks, or, you know, block storage, file storage, etc. is very different to what we've been used to historically.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's on top of that, Rob, where you start looking at some of the other challenges, right, outside of the technical challenge. But if you start thinking about the portability issues that sits around that, as I've talked about earlier, you know, you've got a huge skill gap now in the market where, you know, customers have rationalized their staff because they believed that they were moving to this cloud world that was going to help them to drive these efficiencies. We've got availability challenges in terms of multi-zones and obviously the way their data sits. But equally, you've got uncertainty around economics and performance, you know, so, you know, and that comes back to what you were saying there in terms of the limitations of really some of these cloud offerings that they have today. But the overarching services, some of them are fantastic because of the amount of R&D that they throw at it.
And we need that best of both worlds approach effectively at the end of the day, don't we? Some of them enterprise class features that we rely on to deliver, they're like compliance, the cost, etc., but are in tandem with that net new stuff that the cloud providers are bringing. If we can get that best of both worlds, maybe that original promise of public cloud can be fully realized. And rather than us, what I think we're seeing is we've swapped one bunch of problems for a different bunch of problems. You know, we don't have an infrastructure team anymore, but we've got a FinOps team instead. And we've got a different set of challenges to deal with. And I think if we can drive some realization that combining, you know, the traditional and modern worlds together, as it were, if that's what we want to call them, actually could build something quite unique and quite differentiated.
Yeah, absolutely. And this becomes that conversation. This isn't an or conversation. This is an and conversation. And we're in that and world where public cloud is here to stay. Data centers are here to stay. Data is going to be gathered at the edge. It's going to be fed into the core, and it's potentially going to be extended into the cloud for processing, etc. In terms of whatever a customer wants to do from a value perspective.
Yep, definitely. And I think it's that choice that's key at the end of the day, isn't it? Is let's not get wrapped up in the hype or the, well, everyone else is doing it or any of these sorts of things. Actually, what is the choice? What's the value? What's the business outcome? And actually, if we can have that connected ecosystem of services that requires less management, less complexity, and adds more value, why wouldn't we do it? Just because it isn't the norm. Well, 10 years ago, public cloud wasn't the norm. 10 years before that, VMware wasn't the norm. But they became the norms because people challenged the status quo and drove to something that was adding more value.
Absolutely. And you're seeing, I'm sure, Rob, yourself, you know, these customers' environments becoming more and more complex.
Oh, so, definitely, yeah.
You know,
even some of these native born in the cloud organizations we're talking to today are looking at it going, this is horrendously complex. You know, the amount of microservices they've built, when you look at the service meshes, etc., it's like they don't know what to do with them. And the cloud was supposed to be simple, but you build anything large or you take any technology over time, it will become more complex because it gets built on and built on to build new requirements into it. And it's hard to maintain that early life simplicity that you maybe have had and still have the innovation. So you're always going to have these cycles, and we've just got to be ready to embrace them earlier maybe than we have done traditionally so we can get the best value.
I think we just got to be realistic that there isn't a silver bullet that's going to solve all of these problems. There has to be a consultative conversation and understanding of, okay, where do you want to go? Where do you want to be? I think there's a terminology that CDW use, particularly around your workload.
Yeah, so we call it right workload, right platform. And it is effectively, is as simple as it sounds, is let's run our workloads where they will deliver the best business value for the most economic sense. And if that is public cloud, great. If it's edge, great. If it's in a data center somewhere, then great. I even joke with customers and say, if it's mainframe, hey, let's do mainframe. I'm not saying you should, don't any stretch here saying that I'm suggesting that, but if the ROI case said that the best thing to do would be to put an app on mainframe which deliver the best business value, just because it's not the trend, why wouldn't you do it? Right now, the answer is you wouldn't do it because you didn't feel like you want to buck the trend or be the but. Let's be brave. Let's be brave and do the right thing for the business, and not be predicated in any particular outcome. And that's where I think the value we and jointly can come to this story from, is that we don't really care. You stick it all in cloud, great. You stick it all on-prem, great. You stick it all the edge, great. Let's get the value, though.
You're absolutely right. And equally, if you look at, okay, so from a technology outcomes perspective in terms of what they're trying to drive, we also have to be acutely aware that some of these customers are already embarking on that journey. Commercially, sometimes before the technical, of understanding right workload, right place. And we've seen it in the market. I think at the moment there's in excess of something in the region of $360 billion of commitments that are out there between those three cloud providers that we look after. And
that's a big number.
It's a huge number. And customers are looking at that and saying, where do I start? You were in a room with a cloud provider because, someone's made the decision that that's the direction that we're going into for whatever reason, and some of the ones that we've talked about, but they're looking at organizations like ours and saying, okay, how can you help me with this problem? Because the answer I'm getting from the cloud providers themselves is one-dimensional. It's not.
I think that's the crux of what we're talking about here, is that how do we optimize that cloud usage so it delivers the best business value at the end of the day? Excellent. So I think that kind of wraps up the summary pieces. We know we need to optimize. We know that hybrid is here to stay. We think that choice is the key conversation we need to deliver, and we need to get away from the preconceived outcomes that are needed and just drive to what actually is delivering business value. And I think that's what we're going to start to talk about a little bit in part 2. So thanks, Dean, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for listening, everyone. I've been Rob Sims, Chief Technologist for CDW in the UK.
And I'm Dean Martin, the cloud provider lead for Dell Technologies.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
In today's episode, be sure to check out the back catalogue for more great insights. Don't forget to subscribe via your favourite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. We appreciate your support. And if you have a topic you want us to cover, feel free to reach out. Catch you next time.